the darkness, self-conscious and scared, held prisoner of war, running out of air, buried in the sadness, on their way out of this paralyzing world. And the sound of a cry when a family's loved one dies, it echoed through a vacant room where a young soul still resides. When the light is cold and you feel like no one knows what it's like to be the only one buried in this hole. You can make it to the sunrise. You can make it to the sunrise. Searching for a way to escape the madness, a dire need for change as we fight for better days. The hurt and the pain cut deep like a razor blade, holding in a cry for love, abandoned and afraid. When the night is cold and you feel like no one knows what it's like to be the only one buried in this hole, you can make it to the sunrise. You can make it to the sunrise. I won't go to my grave until a difference is made.
Just a mic check. Making sure. Mic check. Why are they mowing outside now? This is so stupid. Ah. I apologize, but we're gonna get through this. We'll get through this.
I won't go to my grave until a difference is made. Until a difference is made. Full of despair, inside the darkness, self-conscious and scared, held prisoner of war, running out of air, buried in the sadness, on their way out of this paralyzing world. And the sound of a cry when a family's loved one dies, it echoed through a vacant room where a young soul still resides. When the light is cold and you feel like no one knows what it's like to be the only one buried in this hole, you can make it to the sunrise. You can make it to the sunrise. Searching for a way to escape the madness, a dire need for change as we fight
Check,
for
check.
better
Testing.
days.
Yep. Sweet.
We're gonna get started in a second. I just gotta make sure all the platforms know that we're doing this. Just need a few more seconds. Seems okay. Let's do it. Lower this. How's the sound, everyone? Sounding good? Can you hear me?
You're saying it sounds good on my end.
Okay, I can hear you good enough as well. Alright. Well, let's get started here. Alright, what's going on, people? It's boy Rebirth here bringing you my official review for ReZero episode 45. We're not doing 45 and 46. I'm a little hard pressed for time. With the bleach stuff that's coming up, I'm trying to make sure I have my bleach stuff in order. So we would have done 2 episodes, but I need to do something else today, so I'm gonna do only 45. Roughly, probably this will be like an hour affair. Then I'll get you guys out of here so we can all go do other things. But I see Ken Kaneki in the chat. What's going on? Availing 976. What's going on? Ethan. Yeah, I hope to have you on here again. And I think I added everyone on the Discord, so just so people would see it. Yeah, thanks, Jared. Thank you. Alright, so I'm not gonna waste any time. You have to be efficient here so I can take questions. I do have someone in the Discord voice chat, Jared, who will be chiming in from time to time to get his opinions of some of these things. So let me see. Here we go. Right, so every now and then I'm gonna go get Jared so Jared can give his opinion on some of these ReZero concepts. Alright, so let's get started with this review. Let me just open up my notes. Alright, so episode 45 of ReZero. I'll tell you right now, this episode was a mixed bag, and I know in the title I said, can you guys guess why? And the reason why, if you want to know, is because of Ryuzu. Ryuzu's sections are not interesting for me. I've made that very clear. Like, Ryuzu is not really an interesting character for me. I'm gonna get what Roswaal, what Jared thinks about this in a second, but the episode opens up with Roswaal stumbling into the room. This is a flashback, it would seem, and he's grimacing in pain for some reason, and then we see Echidna walking after him, who refers to what he's suffering from as an accumulation of mana, the magic release period, which is something that I definitely want Jared to, like, if there's any extra information you can give me on that, I would take it, because I'm pretty sure in the novel they probably went into more detail than that, because the magic release period sounds like a moment for you to, oh, so for every magician, if you're of this level of power, you oftentimes have this, I don't know, it sounds like there should be more details with it, but Roswaal's having an issue venting his accumulated mana, and Echidna helps him with that by kissing him. Now, she doesn't just like kiss him, like she really, really goes in. All right, which is kind of graphic considering I was like, wait, they're gonna show all of this? Yeah, she goes in and she gets the job done. And that was the first instance that Roswaal and Echidna interact, and you can tell right from the get-go, man's blushing, he's in love with Echidna. It's very clear at that point. So I'm not actually going to go any further than that, because just in case the magic release period requires time to explain, I'm going to ask Jared if you can chime in for a second here. So first, what did you think about that first scene? And secondly, is there anything you could tell us about the magic release period?
Well, that was definitely a very interesting scene. I'm a little bit jealous of Roswaal, but
You and me both, bro.
so what we see here is that she actually sucked his mana, directly out from his body. But in the mana release period, we've actually seen this before. I'm not sure if you saw Memory Snow.
I did not.
The OVA.
Yeah, I didn't.
But that takes place in between episode 12 and 13, I believe, of season 1.
Okay.
And that involves basically Puck, who has a magic release period, and he actually freezes the mansion because he's having to let out so much mana. So this is something that Roswaal, at that time, 400 years ago, had no clue how to deal with. And so the only way is to release the magic, which Puck tried to do steadily, but he ended up freezing everything. And I'll leave you to, whenever you have your own time, to watch that, because I don't want to, there's not really any spoilers in there, but that does give you a bit of a better idea as to what happens there.
And so does every magician have a magic release period? Everyone?
It's mostly limited to stronger people with mana. So if you have a larger amount of mana, so say even Amelia, for instance, who is one of the highest, on the charts, she might have a magic release period, but she does spend a lot of mana through Puck. So like she channels her mana through Puck.
Okay. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
So like people who are weaker, say like Rim or especially Ram, would not have that because they can easily manage the small amount of mana that they have.
Okay, so it's more or less, it's like the mana, everybody has a certain amount. The people who have more amounts of mana, it accumulates if they don't use it, and then at the point where it's accumulating, if you don't vent it, it starts to actually hurt your body. And so in the case of Amelia, because she's spending all her magic because she has a contract with Puck, and Puck uses her mana to like materialize himself or whatever, the chances that she needs to vent is lessened because there's a constant flow of magic being released naturally. But in the case of Roswaal, so is the assumption here that with Roswaal, he doesn't know how to use magic at the time, or is it that his magic accumulation is so high that he actually needs to vent like a bunch of it? What do you think?
It's actually both, because pretty much everyone in the ReZero universe has Odd and a Gate, and so they have mana. But in Roswaal's case, it's so much that he just suffers from it because he doesn't know how to use mana at all.
Gotcha.
So that he's just kind of like outstanding in that regard. So you might have saw at the beginning of the episode where he turned around because Echidna, showed him what to do with it, and he said, "And then I bested my parents and my siblings and became the head of the household."
Right.
So that's how he became a great magician.
Okay. Someone said the volume seems low to me. Okay, let me fix this. Let me make this louder. Alright, let me know. Is it any better? Let me know. Any better, Eduardo? Hopefully it's better. Okay, Kaneki also said. Alright, I'm raising the volume. I raised it. Should be fine. Okay, it's better now. Okay, I apologize, but hopefully you heard enough of what we were saying. But okay, I got you. Alright, so moving on. So she's consoling Roswaal during this moment, and Roswaal falls to his knees, and when he falls to his knees, she embraces him. And there's one thing, and I don't know whether this is on purpose or whether it's going to go anywhere, but Echidna's face is obscured through all of this. Like you can't see her eyes, and they try to do whatever they can to make sure that you don't see all of her. And this is a constant theme throughout the entire episode. In fact, I don't think you actually see Echidna's full face for the entirety of the episode. the White Fox, or maybe it's Nagatsuki, are going to great lengths to make sure you don't see her face, her full face, for some reason. But anyway, Roswaal is on the floor and she embraces him, which is oddly similar to what happened with Subaru when he finally was able to tell her about Return by Death, and she also goes down and embraces him. So it's like, I don't know if Echidna has the thing for it, or I guess in essence, Echidna has a thing for anybody who has the probability or the opportunity to well, let me put it this way, because she's always interested in gaining new knowledge. If you're someone who seems like an interesting person, she'll, automatically be drawn to you. And so she does tell Roswaal that I'm an evil witch who occasionally does nice things, which is, quite frankly, it's like an interesting way to describe Echidna's character, and she embraces him there. So then we switch to another point in the flashback where Roswaal is seated with Ryuzu. Now, let me just be real with Ryuzu, because I've already made my argument about Ryuzu already. She's not interesting. Her monotone tone of voice is just not interesting to me. I'm not vibing with it, and her character arc is not even particularly that interesting to me. But she's interacting with Beatrice and Roswaal, and just like Jared just says, Roswaal mentioned that he was able to gain the power to best his parents and his siblings. So we know Roswaal has siblings. I'm assuming when he say bested, is he actually saying killed, or does he just mean defeat or ran out? Like, is he actually talking about killing them? Like, Jared, if you have an answer for this.
I couldn't tell you 100% fact, but I'm going to assume just from this, because we know that Roswaal is somewhat carrying at the, as that first generation,
Right.
that he probably just outperformed them.
Okay. And then he just took control of every. Okay, that's fair. Because I'm like, the Roswaal we see now, I mean, if it's Roswaal we know in the present timeline, I think he would do it. But back then, I don't know that he would do that. So we then go forward a little bit, and we cut back to reality. And apparently, Roswaal now understands that Subaru and the others who spoke with Ryuzu know about the day the sanctuary was formed. And so, as of now, like with the structure of the episode, we're going back and forth through flashbacks. So we start out with the Roswaal flashback, we finish that, we go forward in time passes to Roswaal with Ryuzu and Beatrice, then we come back to reality for Roswaal talking to Subaru and the others, and then we're about to go back into flashback yet again. And so before I go back into flashback, I want to give Jared an opportunity to say if there's anything you found interesting about this part of the episode before we keep going.
Not in particular. I do wish that this was some, one of the more recent episodes. It is, a little bit more eventful.
They did.
I know this one had its moments, but I think what most of the interesting stuff definitely happens towards the later.
True. Yeah, it's like a
parts of
setup
the episode.
of sorts. Yeah. So we head back into flashback, and Ryuzu and Beatrice are seated near a stream. Now, for me, the aesthetic of the scene itself, like seeing them seated with a stream with Ryuzu holding a book, it's calming, it's soothing, it's peaceful, and I was kind of vibing with that, really. And Beatrice and Ryuzu are interacting. Again, I'm not gonna beat a dead horse here. I'm not a vibe of there. I don't think they gel well together during scenes, but there is something that they mention here that I don't particularly understand, and hopefully Jared is just a person to help me out with it. In the chat too, if you understand, please let me know. Beatrice mentioned something about using yin magic to put Ryuzu into this situation where Ryuzu would open a door, but then that door would lead to the same room, and Beatrice was saying, oh, it's just a prank or whatever, she used yin magic. And then Roswaal comes in and says he did the same thing to Beatrice using yang magic. So, first of all, to Jared in the chat, the first thing here is, can you tell, I would have preferred for them to go into a little more detail about the nature of yin and yang magic, because I'm not sure whether or not we've seen that already mentioned to where we know what goes into it, because we know the attributes, like the elemental attributes. Yin and yang magic, I'm not sure we've gone that deep into the analysis of it, and how it's like Beatrice is using yin magic to do the same thing that Roswaal is using yang magic to do. Is there any connection there? So I'll let Jared take that.
I couldn't say for sure on yang magic. We know that yin magic is used for spatial manipulation in a lot of cases. Such as, her door crossing ability. As for yang magic, one thing I wanted to point out was Roswaal doesn't have the same mastery in yin magic that Beatrice does. So he used yang magic, I guess, because he's a bit better at that.
And someone in the chat is talking about yin and yang magic is the proper translation of light and dark.
Yes. There's a few uses of yang magic that I can recall, but as far as I know of, none of them were spatial manipulation.
Okay, interesting. So, just to read some of the people and what they're saying in the chat, Methan, Ken Kaneki says yin and yang magic is the proper translation of what they called light and dark in season 1. Okay, that makes sense. Yin magic controls space-time, debuffs gravity and shadows, and so yin is equal to space manipulation, yang is equal to light and buffs. And so, is it like Roswaal? I've seen Roswaal use fire magic. He also has yang and fire magic. He has 2 attributes. I don't necessarily know the laws of the ReZero magic, whatever. Can you do that? Can you have 2 attributes?
Roswaal, I believe, I'm not sure if it was stated in the light novel at this point, but he actually has affinity with all 6 types of magic.
Broken.
Yes.
Okay, I feel like I don't know if they mentioned that because if they did, I completely missed it. Roswaal can use all affinities. That's crazy.
Yeah, I want to say it's mentioned in the novels specifically, but I don't think it is in the anime.
Okay.
Though he does, one thing to bring up is that there are users who have like the highest power in a certain attribute, and Roswaal is actually the holder of 3 of the highest, most powerful attributes, or the most powerful user in 3 attributes.
Okay, so this man is broken. Okay. All right, and just for, because I don't know if this will be spoilery, but just so we know, because we know Reinhardt stands at the top of everyone. Roswaal is putting a pretty good word in the fact that he stands at the apex of the mastery over 3 attributes. What do we know? What Reinhardt's attribute is, or is he just a swordsman?
Reinhardt actually doesn't have an attribute.
Yeah.
I believe it's stated that he's not able to use mana at all.
Mana's just broken.
Yeah, so he ends up actually...
he's not compatible.
Okay.
Yeah. So he does actually pull a lot of mana from the air, but most of the mana that's used is by spirits that are either reinforcing his body or healing him.
Okay. Reinhardt, like Reinhardt should be the main character. Like I would watch that because the dude is just everything I hear about him is just like, you know, I understand why Poolkid has him as his profile picture. The more I learn about him. But okay, interesting. Reinhardt's a very interesting guy. So moving on then. So chat, I'm just gonna move on. I'll make sure to come back and grab anything else that you guys have. So they have a little bit more chatter, which because it's Ryuzu, I really don't care. But Ryuzu, well, I'll say this about Ryuzu though. Ryuzu is holding a book, and it looks like she either can't read at all or is very bad at it, and Roswaal recommends that Beatrice should help and teach Ryuzu how to read, to which she reluctantly obliges, because Beatrice is always like, you know, she won't fully agree to something, like she always talks in the backhanded manner, but it's still good in my opinion. It's like, it's fine, you know, it's whatever. But all of a sudden, Beatrice gets up and she says that mother is calling, and she goes to the cabin door. Moments later, Roswaal also senses something, and he's like, oh, he's here. Now, at the point watching this, like, hey, who is he? It's the first time we're hearing a he guy with this much hype in a minute. And so we then cut to the, I'm assuming it's like the outskirts of the sanctuary, and there's a man walking with mad aura. When I initially saw his character design, before seeing his face, I was really digging his character design from the neck down. Because later on when I see his facial expression kind of kills it for me, because like, he couldn't be bothered, like literally. But prior to that, I was really vibing with the particular type of character design given to him, with the white and the purple, with the, well, I don't know what to call it, but he has a really good character design. And so Echidna, Roswaal goes to speak with Echidna, and Echidna tells Roswaal that the construction of the theory is complete, but they're lacking the core necessary for generating the barrier. So I would like either, well, whether Poolkid or Jared wants to take this. We know, like, I know that Echidna was experimenting on immortality experiments, trying to do that. At the same time, it's implied here that Echidna is also experimenting with generating a barrier. So when they say the theory, construction of the theory, does that have to do with the barrier or something else? I'm assuming it has something to do with the barrier, but I just want to make sure.
So, this is one of the big mysteries, which I think it's very interesting because it's cut out in the novel as well, as to what exactly happens whenever the barrier is put up. And we're not exactly sure how, I guess, odd fits into generating the barrier or using, someone's odd as the core.
Right.
A lot of the magic on that end of like creating things or mechanisms and stuff like that isn't really that well explored. But as far as Hector and the barrier being generated around him is still a bit of a mystery as to what exactly occurred.
Okay. So hopefully in the future we'll probably get more details of things going on. I'm surprised I'm this far behind and we still don't, because when you say you don't know, I'm assuming you're taking the novels into consideration, right?
Yes, up to this current point.
Okay, that's great. Like, how much story are you telling Nagatuki that you... It's crazy. I don't know I have no idea where the story's gonna go, but okay. Fair enough. So, Roswaal and Beatrice... Roswaal and Echidna are still going back and forth talking about the construction of the theory and the barrier and all these things, and during that's when Ryuzu offers herself, saying that she will be a power source for the core. Specifically, they intend to use her odd as the sanctuary's core. And they talk about it a little bit more, and then the plan is taken into action. Now, the weird thing here is that, and I want to pose this question back to you guys in the chat and Jared as well, is that like we don't see where Beatrice is. Presumably, she's been told to go and do reinforcements or whatever. She's gone, and then Echidna and the others have the conversation. After that point, we don't necessarily see Echidna update Beatrice on what she should be doing. Is the assumption here that Echidna knew all along that Ryuzu would offer herself, and so whatever she told Beatrice to do was already going to fall right into place as to what the plan was all along?
That is probably the best assumption. We're not exactly certain on that. There's a lot of questions about Echidna and her intentions as of 400 years ago, and if any of that is actually separate than her current spirit, which resides in the Tea Party.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that is also a big mystery.
Okay. Well, and also I do know that she and Beatrice can sort of telepathically. They can send information telepathically, it seems, because Beatrice was outside and she's like, "Mother's calling me," and then she just knows. And so I'm assuming that even if she could have just sent the orders and just updated her, it's just they jumped over it, so I wasn't sure. So again, it was at this moment, because in my notes here, at this moment where I began to notice throughout this scene, White Fox isn't showing Echidna's face. And initially on my first watch, I was wondering, is there a reason why they're keeping her face obscured? We already know what she looks like. Why are they going to these lengths to make sure, giving back of the head shots and distance shots and focusing on below the neck? I'm like, this is a lot that you're trying to do to not show us her face. What's the reason? I'm not sure. I don't know if it's gonna come into anything because I already seen the rest of the season, so maybe in the time to come it'll come into play. I'm not sure. So we switch scenes, and Roswaal is going up against this guy Hector. We don't know his name until a little later in the episode, but this is Hector. Apparently he is the warlock of melancholy, but at least I'm watching on Verve on Crunchyroll, they called him the devil, and then later on people on Patreon told me that, well, devil is just, they mean a male witch, a warlock. Jared, do you agree with that? Like, are you in resonance with that?
Yes. Well, in terms of 400 years ago, what they had were witches and warlocks, and that's how they're just defining the gender of the person holding the authority at that time.
Okay. And
yes,
sure, go ahead.
Yes, I agree with this too. Devil was being used in the context of a mage.
Okay.
So the proper translation should be warlock, not devil.
Okay, so a slight little mistranslation. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. And we, I initially, because again, I told you I liked his character design when I didn't see his face. Because once I saw his face, he looks so sad, so unbothered, or I guess so like very bothered, and there are bags under his eyes, and his tone is like he doesn't care about anything. That kind of killed his character design for me because I want him to look cool. But he looks too unbothered to look cool in my eyes. But the way he fights, the man doesn't lift a well, he does lift a finger to block an Algoa, I think, but he doesn't really go like he doesn't fight actively. He just speaks. He would say things like, and I had to quote this: "Shut up, you're noisy. You're annoying me. You're a pain. I'm losing interest. I'm losing heart." And with every insult, I guess, or with every statement that he says, Roswaal is getting damaged. He's getting his body's getting scrunched up into many different shapes and sizes, slamming him to the ground, creating craters, doing a lot of things just by way of speaking, which is oddly similar, or at the very least, I feel the same dynamic with Pandora, where it's things that she says causes things to happen, and here things that he's saying is causing things to happen. Is there a correlation? I'm not really sure, but Jared, what did you think about Jared's introduction with his ability where he just speaks things and they happen?
I thought that was pretty badass. I'm not gonna lie, but I mean, though his expression, I wish he was a bit, angry, more angry or on guard or whatever. But as far as the, I guess the correlation there, the only thing I can come up with is that it's just an authority, and I have theories on authorities, but I, wouldn't go over them because it would probably require spoilers to go over.
Okay.
But I believe there is some type of correlation, but it's not, cutting apart the same authority or anything.
Right. Interesting. Hector, I mean, hey, Hector he's no Daphne, he's no Satella, he's no Echidna, but he's interesting. I'll give him that. I don't think, I mean, Sekhmet hasn't done anything, and the Carmilla is like whatever, so I guess I'll put him above those, but I don't think he uproots any of the top 5, probably. But anyway, moving on with what happens here, there's a moment where Roswaal is completely outmatched, all right? And of course, I would assume that Roswaal at this point, he may be strong, but obviously not strong enough to fight against this guy who, when just with his presence alone, everyone was panicking. So okay, cool. This guy has clout, he has hype, which is fine by me. They still continue to fight, and Roswaal lashes out at him, saying that because Hector is just complaining about things like, oh, I don't want to be here, and this sucks, and whatever, and Roswaal sort of lashes out, claiming that he's constantly complaining about how he did not choose to be this way at all. And Roswaal makes the argument that even if you didn't choose, even if you didn't choose to be born this way, you're still the one in control of what you're doing now, and so you cannot be playing the victim. To which Hector agrees, and then he does this thing where he basically splinters Roswaal's heart. I think I had to write it down exactly what he did. He splinters Roswaal's heart, which I'm like, isn't that a death sentence? But I guess not. But Roswaal's out for the count, and at that point, Echidna shows up. The names are beginning to get a lot. Like, I'm beginning to be like, I have to stop for a second to think about which name I have to talk about at that moment. So he has a short conversation with Echidna, and as they speak, the manner in which he's talking to Echidna makes me feel like whatever history they have, he must have been like a superior of some kind, because he says, you were so adorable back then. Like, I feel like if the person's your equal, I don't necessarily think you would say you were so adorable back then. That statement makes me feel like the vibe in the relationship was like, oh, she was so younger and he was older, and you're like, oh, you were so adorable back then, and now you've grown up. At least that's the way it feels to me. What do you think, Jared?
So I would like to mention that it's interesting that they've been hiding her face the entire time, and then he comments on what she looked like back then.
Right. So she changed.
So it's definitely, as of speaking, in reference to this time, like this certain episode, there is definitely a reason that they're not showing her face.
Okay.
But yeah, as far as the relationship, it makes me, and especially the tone of voice that Hector takes, particularly his isms, where he talks like he stretches out certain words and the way he dresses. I thought it was pretty interesting
Right,
that
and-
Roswaal
Right.
ended up looking a lot like him after that.
Right. And I think he has Aomine or Sukuna's voice actor, which was a nice surprise. Yeah, Hector is getting some decent characterization. That is a good point. I don't know why I forgot to put it in here. He does talk like Roswaal will end up speaking like, and his dressing is kind of similar. Although Roswaal probably put his own spin on it, but they look kind of similar. That is true. So, in the cabin behind Echidna and Hector, Ryuzu is laying low, trying to keep out of trouble. Beatrice shows up, and they retreat to the room where the crystal is. Now, Beatrice claims that Echidna ordered her to bring Ryuzu to this place, and basically Beatrice does what Echidna says. Echidna's mother's words are absolute, these are just prelude to the despair that Beatrice is going to feel very soon. Now, they have a scene. It's probably a 5-minute stretch scene where Ryuzu and Beatrice are having a moment. I don't care. I really don't care. And as I was preparing for this review, I was like, I don't want to talk about this because I don't care. Look, I get the gist of it, okay? Ryuzu and Beatrice are beginning to become friends, and, Beatrice doesn't want her to go because, again, Beatrice doesn't have many friends to begin with, so it's you don't want to lose the one friend you have and everything. And, Ryuzu is still grateful because, they give her a home, and she's happy where she is, and so she wants to do what she can to protect her family or whatever, and so she just goes, look, it's whatever. I'll give Jared, if maybe you care more about Ryuzu more than I do, if you have anything to say about this, you can go ahead. I have little to say about this.
As far as Ryuzu, I think it's interesting that her use case is what I've found so far is that she's used for basically explaining or filling out things like plot holes, or throwing in lore, or that type
Right.
of thing. And I
History
think this scene
lessons.
is kind of walking the tightrope between trying to be emotional with a character that's not really good at provoking an emotional reaction, being Ryuzu, and while also filling in some amount of story regarding Beatrice and why she is the way she is.
Right. As an author, you can't necessarily always hit home run characters, and God knows Nagatsuki has given us a lot of good characters. Ryuzu's his first miss probably of the series in terms of characters. It's probably his first miss of a major character because so far Nagatsuki is pretty good at his introducing, giving you a reason to like them or hate them, but you know what it's about. Ryuzu is the first where I'm just whatever, it is what it is. And yes, today's only for the 45th. I do apologize. I'm a little hard pressed for time. So that scene sort of finishes and we go back to the present. Now when we go back to the present time, it's Roswaal interacting with Subaru, Otto, and Garfield. Now, Roswaal admits that, okay, cool, so you know what happened back then. That doesn't change anything. I didn't go through 400 years of hard work for it to end here. Adding a piece like Otto to the board and turning Garfield to be your ally is not going to change anything. I still have the advantage. I will not surrender. Because remember, Subaru came here to tell Roswaal to surrender. Now, he then turns to Garfield and he hurls a little bit of, I don't want to call them insults, but he does berate Garfield for losing his fangs. That Garfield felt so strongly about outsiders, but had a complete 180 upon meeting Subaru and now Subaru's bodyguard. He calls Subaru boss after all. Now, this particular exchange is probably, this scene alone is the best scene in the episode, but more importantly, I prefer the interaction between Roswaal and Garfield to the interaction between Roswaal and Subaru later on, even though Subaru and Roswaal's interaction is good. I thought Garfield had a really nice moment here. And so what happens here is that Roswaal argues that if Garfield truly loved his family, if you truly loved your family, would you change so readily, or did you not really love them at all? Let's start from there. Roswaal's argument, and I assume that Roswaal doesn't know every single thing about Garfield. Probably all he knows is, Garfield harbors hatred towards the outside world for losing his mother. And it's probably that's where it ends, because again, Roswaal isn't all-knowing. At least I don't think. And so, it seems that from Roswaal's perspective, the more love you have for your mother, the more hatred you'd have for the world for taking her from you. And that's what Roswaal believes from his perspective. I'm going to pose a question to you guys and to Jared as well. If someone makes a life-altering decision the moment it's presented to him, versus someone who has to go for an entire mini arc before coming to the conclusion that he should change, do you weigh those two decision-making changes the same? Do you value the person who actually took the time to maybe, think about it, he had reservations, he had to really break it down and analyze or whatever, versus the guy who you told him and he just picked it up immediately and he changed? Does it make any difference to you? Because I believe that's what Roswaal is missing in this particular scene. So I'll let you answer that.
I think what Roswaal sees is, I would say in a very similar fashion. I think I can compare him to Garfield, where Garfield, he's willing to step in and be, he wanted to be Sanctuary's wall, the shield that protected everything.
Right.
And he was willing to become whatever villain, or take whatever blame, do whatever horrific thing, because we saw what he did to all those villagers previously in the first half of season 2. And then Roswaal is we see how he might have been in the past, and then he tries to stack 400 years working towards a certain goal to justify the change that he made.
Right.
Whereas a Garfield change, as Subaru said, without changing, where he changed from being afraid and afraid of something to the point of like putting himself between it and the people he loved, versus accepting help from the people he loved in a very similar fashion to Subaru, what Subaru did with Otto.
Right.
And I think that's a distinguishment is Roswaal is wanting to do everything, work behind the scenes, plot, and not really share what he's doing and do everything by himself. Whereas we see Subaru comes in with a group of 2 other people, and it rips time, investment, all those other things out of the water.
Right.
If it's just one person, you have other people that are involved, and one person doesn't, like, you can have one person whether they're 10 years old or one person whether they're 400 years old. 2 people is more than still just one person, and that's a higher investment on that change.
Right. Yeah, I understand what you're trying to say here. Yeah. And look, the breakdown of Roswaal's character and in terms of the way he perceives things, which we'll get into in just a second, it's quite interesting. It's quite interesting. So before we move on to that part, let's just to end what Garfield's answer is. And this to me was it's probably the quote of I don't know if it's quote of the season, but it's up there. It's definitely up there. So his answer is superb. He says, "I didn't change my mind because Subaru beat me in a fight. I'd spent 10 years clinging to the past, unable to let it go. But I just faced that past for the first time in 10 years. Because rather than the one who told me to stay weak forever, I'd rather follow the man who told me that I need you because you're strong." And that is such a good line. That is such a good line. And thank you, Nakatsuki. Thank you. Because at the end of the day, it just has to be like from the perspective of Roswaal and Subaru, who are the would-be masters in this context. It's all about perspective. Roswaal, and Subaru mentioned this later on, Roswaal chooses to see the weakness in others, where Subaru is willing to see the strength in them. And I thought, to me, that does wonders for Garfield's character, to come to that point, being so young, yet to be so mature enough to say that. I loved that. What do you guys think of that scene right there with what Garfield's answer was?
I really like that. Particularly like the shonen aspect. There's not really a heavy shonen aspect to ReZero, particularly because our main character is, he's not really getting that much stronger. But whenever you bring Garfield into the picture, I love how it changes to, just like that aspect of what you can do to, turn things on their head with your strength, and that kind of like that kind of line just fits in there so well with the way Garfield's personality is.
Right. It was a beautiful scene, I thought. and Garfield's voice actor delivers it so well. It was a good scene right there. So Subaru then takes over, and he argues that Garfield saw his past and let all the hate go. But that doesn't mean his love for his mother was not enough. Roswaal is standing on the opposite end, who will not see his 400 years of work be undone by an ordinary man like Subaru. And this is where the conversation between Subaru and Roswaal peaks. Roswaal believes that feelings do not change. I'm going to stop there for a second. Jared, what do you think? Roswaal says feelings do not change. What do you think about that?
Feelings definitely do change in the same way that maybe you didn't like cabbage as a kid,
right?
That kind of thing. But you know, here I am eating egg rolls with cabbage in them as an adult,
right?
But feelings definitely do change, and we see that happening actively with what Subaru is doing within the sanctuary thus far.
Right. It's to me the conversation, because you know both of them are having, it's like an ideological debate between the two of them, and I tried to not necessarily play devil's advocate, but I really tried to understand where Roswaal was coming from and seeing like what Roswaal has been doing, because Subaru believes that Roswaal just wants to see the weakness in feelings, whereas Subaru chooses to see the strength in feelings, and it's like just completely different perspectives. But Roswaal here, he's like, his perspective here is that he believes that everyone, or feelings that are universally weak. Now, I had trouble with this part of the episode. I had trouble trying to understand what Roswaal was, because I felt like I wanted more information to really understand where he's coming from. From the way I understood this, and just everybody correct me if I'm wrong. Like, if I'm wrong, I would not be surprised. But correct me if I'm wrong here. He's claiming that feelings do not change, and that feelings are inherently a sign of weakness. And he believes that because it's so weak, you're not even able to accomplish anything without clinging to that one thing in your life. In his case, it's the so-called love that he has for Echidna, trying to bring her back to life. In Garfield's case, it's the hatred he has because his mother died. Everyone is universally weak. Feelings are, well, feelings does not change for anyone, and universally across the board, it's seen as something that's weak. And so, as from Roswaal's perspective, because he views things to be weak, at the very least, you can use that weakness to get stronger in order to achieve the goal that you want. And this is where it almost comes into something about like a means to an end point from Roswaal. So like, if I admit, or if I understand that everyone is weak and that feelings are a sign of weakness, at the very least, I can deny that weakness by capitalizing on the emotion that I have to get better. So he's not just saying be weak and stay weak. He's actually using his apparent weakness as a reason to get stronger to achieve his goal. It's just that Subaru's on the opposite side, who says, I'm not using my feelings as a sign to say I'm weak, but rather try to be strong. Now look, if I were recording all that, I'm not posting that, because that was like a bunch of word filler. If you got anything from that, please let's discuss, because I probably need a little bit of clarity. This is why I don't do it. This is why I don't do it live. Like, if I were recording, I don't post that. But go ahead.
Yeah, so I think I understand exactly what you mean. And like, Roswaal believes, that to, do something to back up the way you feel, you have to have the power to do it. And I think it's interesting, the contrast here is that he wants to rip away everything that he cared about, to focus on one goal, that being Echidna. And whenever we started out the episode, we, saw what he said to Beatrice was, he said, I love you, Beatrice.
Mm-hmm.
And he's willing to get rid of all of those feelings, all of those weaknesses that he sees in himself, so that he can focus on one goal. And I think it's very interesting that this all goes back in a circle, because he was willing to sacrifice Beatrice for the sake of his goal.
Right. Do we know here if, like, with Roswaal's argument about feelings, and eliminating these weak feelings and whatnot, does he not consider the feelings he has towards Echidna to be weak as well?
That's hard to say, because I see like the circular reasoning there.
Right.
But I would say that it's the whole breaking away from everything and then clinging on to one. Is that like a feeling, like, so feelings plural is weak, I suppose, but I guess you can take that any way you want to.
Okay, I got you. Okay, so it's sort of like all the fleet feelings in its plural form is distracting, and to him it's like by putting away all those different ones and clinging onto the one thing, which may still be feelings. In his case, it's still feelings of love towards Echidna. By eliminating everything, just focusing on the one thing, aspiring to that, in his mind, that is that is the way to go. That is the way to live. Which that's probably why he's so particular about, at least prior to this, with Subaru, trying to push Subaru into and at least with Emilia, trying to eliminate, to isolate Emilia. Although we will have to talk about Roswaal's relationship with Emilia here. Has he ever cared for Emilia, like, even once? Like, has she just literally just been a means to an end all along?
You could probably assume that, because he was willing to sacrifice her, like, just for, to get Subaru to where he is. So, like, what he did with whenever he basically isolated her in the sanctuary, in the graveyard, and then made it snow. He didn't care what happened to her as long as Subaru was perfected, and pretty much you can just say she's just a means to an end, and he's trying to make it that way with everyone that isn't Echidna.
Okay, because I was initially trying to play devil's advocate for Roswaal-ish, was that, because again, he knows about, or at least he had an idea about return by death. Like, he kind of knows that, okay, to me, it was like, because I didn't want to assume that he literally does not care about it, like a zero, but rather because he knows about return by death, he's willing to let her go through more things, because he knows that ultimately there's just one character who can, right the wrongs. So it is interesting. I'd like to see what happens, because I know what happens at the season end. Like, moving forward, I want to see how he's going to interact with her from that point on, because, like, at this point, his true emotions are being pushed to the surface. So, moving on with the conversation that they were having, Roswaal believes that as long as Emilia is on the board, the game's not over. So it's like right now, Emilia's like the one commonality between Subaru and Roswaal. And it's actually funny that I was just saying this right now. Roswaal does not believe that she can pass a trial. Like, he does not believe in Emilia one bit. On the other hand, Subaru is wholeheartedly believing that she'll succeed, while Roswaal believes she'll fail. And that's at this point where he says something. He says the fate of the half-elf who shares the lineage of the Witch of Envy is fated to fail. Now, he didn't say that in those exact words, but he did mention the lineage, the half-elf who shares the lineage of the Witch of Envy. Now, in the last stream that I had, we were talking about Emilia's mother probability here. Now, all along, has the assumption been that Emilia shares the likeness of Sattler, or rather, Emilia specifically is in the lineage, which means she's blood related to the Witch of Envy? Was that always the point, or is this something new?
So it's not exactly certain to say if whenever they say you're the daughter of the witch, if they're referring to the Witch of Envy or possibly something else.
Right.
However, half-elves, specifically silver-haired half-elves, those genetics do come from a lineage, and the Witch of Envy is more than likely in that lineage.
Okay. So it's not necessarily... So it's not necessarily like, like it's not like you have just like a huge number of races of people, or like, where Subaru has a lineage with his father and whatever. Is it like for half silver, half elf specifically, probably come from one area, and so they share the connections there. Okay, Ken Kaneki says Emilia looks at the exact same as Sattler and even has the same voice. It's a very eyebrow raising situation. Okay, interesting. So at this point comes a scene that you either like or you don't like, depending on your tastes. Subaru does his pose, which, just between me and you, it's not a very good pose. I don't think it looks cool. I think it looks kind of dorky, but it's Subaru, so you let it slide because it's Subaru. But it doesn't look like that. I mean, like, I don't look at that and be like, yeah, I want that poster on my room or anything. But he does the Subaru pose, whatever that is, and he says, you know, my name is Natsuki Subaru, the white elf, wait, I have this written somewhere. He says, my name is Natsuki Subaru, the silver white elf Emilia's knight. Now, I want you guys in the chat to talk about this, and I'll let Jared also enter this. I feel every time I see Subaru do that, I always feel a certain way, because I feel like it's lacking in ambition. And I get it, not all characters are created to be super ambitious, which is perfectly fine. Like, I stand Ichigo, and Ichigo may be seen to some people, I mean, not to me, but he may be seen to some people as not ambitious. You know, Subaru, the issue I have with him making that statement, the white elf the silver white elf Emilia's knight, is that when he says he wants to be a knight, by definition, a knight isn't, like, you're not on her level. You're not above her, you're not on her level. By being a knight, you're subservient, you're subordinate, you're a servant. It's like, I don't like that vibe, because, I mean, like, couldn't you aspire to be anything different? Like, oh, I will be her protector. That's different. It's like to constantly harbor on a knight. It's like willingly saying, yes, you be up here, I shall be down here. And that always I'm always kind of 50-50 on that. And before I let you go, before I came live here, I was just thinking about it with in terms of different characters who do things slightly different. Zoro from One Piece. Zoro is the first mate of the Straw Hat Pirates. Now, Luffy's the one who's like, oh, I want to be king of the pirates. Cool. And we're not asking Subaru to necessarily be like that. But even though Zoro says, Luffy, you're my captain, your orders I will do, he still has his own dream that says, I want to become the strongest swordsman. Which is, you know, it's definite to him, to where he's still trying to get to a peak somewhere, where he's trying to aspire to be great at something. The same thing for Sanji. I'm the cook, I take orders from the captain, but I want to find the old blue. It's specific to me. Or even characters like Ichigo, who aren't super, I'll be king of the pirates, I'll be Hokage, I'll be the strongest hero. Even Ichigo, who doesn't do that, he's still, at least he's selfish to himself. At the very least, he has allegiance to himself, trying to understand himself and his place in the world. It's still about him. For Subaru to be so willingly about, I'll be a knight for you, Emilia, it's like, where is the ambition here? I'll let Jared speak to this.
Yeah, I like to look at it more of like an ace from the Whitebeard Pirates kind of thing, where his ambition, it rests on someone else's position. So like Ace wanted to make, you know, his captain the king of the pirates, and so Subaru has that ambition to make Emilia the queen, and you know, he's cementing himself as that knight. And I think it's funny the way they portray him. I think it was probably on the animation director here, but they like to make Subaru look goofy, like the way he walks around and runs around and makes poses.
Right.
They always make him look goofy, and I think there might be a reason to that. Some people might find it endearing. I personally would have went with a flashier approach, but yeah,
I would
that's
have
my
as well.
thoughts.
Yeah, I would have as well, definitely. But that is a good point. I guess the only difference between like someone like Ace and Subaru is like, we don't have to make Ace, like, Ace is not the main character, so you can afford to let that go. For Subaru to be the main character, and to his whole goal is to make someone else stand at the apex. People in the chat are saying he may have ambition to save Rem. Maybe you could say that, but you know, that's on a need, like, it's a dependent situation. It's because something happened to Rem. It's not what he wants to do. Because at the very least, we do know that, you know, Subaru, for a long time in his life, he was just going through the motions. He didn't really have any sort of aspiration or a dream. He was just going through the motions. And so in my eyes, I see it as a character flaw, but like a character flaw that will, or at least should, be dealt with. Because for him to come from the point where he wasn't doing anything with his life, and he was at a point where he was just in a rut, wasting away, not having any dreams or anything of that nature. I feel like that's a flaw, a conscious flaw on Nokatsuki's part, where Nokatsuki knows exactly about it and says, okay, maybe in the future Subaru can come into his own and maybe find a reason other than Emilia, like a reason that's not outside himself to want to push on. Because right now, everything he's doing, and it's good for him as a character, but he's doing it, oh, because Emilia, oh, because Rem, oh, because of this. It's always because of the ones around me, which you can argue is good, but at the end of the day, like, what about Subaru himself is going to be the reason for him to want to ascend? We're yet to find that out as of now, but, I mean, it doesn't mean he's a bad character. He's still a good character, great character even, but it's just something interesting to consider. So, in the final scene, not the final scene. Roswaal then says that he and Subaru are alike in that they force their ideals on the ones they love. Now, I do have a question here. Subaru, like from Roswaal's perspective, Subaru is forcing that, oh, Emilia is strong, Emilia will make it. He's forcing his ideal onto Emilia. What ideal is Roswaal pushing onto Echidna?
That's a good question. I think it might actually be the reverse, but I really could only speculate as to what he might be pushing on Echidna.
Right.
So.
Okay, because I was thinking about it's like, is he forcing? In other words, like maybe he knows that Echidna only cares about her greed, but somehow is so head over heels in love with her that he's convinced himself that somehow she may actually truly love him, and he's completely conscious of the fact that he's being stupid, but he's a slave to his desire, and that I've forced this ideal that she will love me or she cares about me, the same way Subaru has forced this notion onto Emilia that Emilia is stronger. If I had to wager a guess, I'd say that's probably what it is. I mean, I guess we'll find out in the future, but that's not where the episode ends. Rebirth. Emilia is in the sanctuary, and she cries and she takes care of herself, whatever, and she comes out and Ram is outside. They're about to have a chat. So that's where the episode ends. Overall, this was I thought this was a mixed bag. Everything with Ryuzu is kind of meh. I don't like that. But Subaru, Garfield, I think Garfield steals the show for me personally. It's only that one scene, but it's such a good line. I'm so in on Garfield right now, and I know what happens. He gets a lot of shine moving forward. Really good character, Garfield. So overall, I thought this episode was a decent to good at best. Decent to good. It's more or less beginning to set up where things are gonna go, which is perfectly fine. But I thought it was a decent to good episode. So, Jared, do you have any thoughts about the episode as a whole before we start taking questions?
Yeah, I would say right around there.
Okay.
It might be unfair to maybe judge it too much because it is just being used for setup and not, every episode was amazing. Then which ones would stand out, but I think it served its purpose as an exposition episode for lore and setting up the plot.
Right. People are gonna be so mad when I make the full season review. People are gonna be so mad. I don't know if you notoriously heard that I prefer season 1 to season 2, and people went crazy. I promise you guys, even if you don't agree with me, I have a reason. I'm not just saying this out of just like thin air. I do have a reason for this, and I will make sure I'll put a lot of effort into crafting a well thought of review for you guys to understand where I'm coming from. Because most people just go to the common denominator, like, oh, Rem isn't in season 2, he doesn't like season 2. No, it's more than that. Come on, you gotta give me more credit. It's more than that, I promise you. But I mean, it is true that Rem, this season kind of needed Rem, but it's fine. Let's go through and sort of answer some of any questions or comments that you may have. At this point, for like the next 15 or so minutes, I'll be answering any questions related to this episode or anything in the past, and Jared will be able to chime in as well. So 15 minutes of questions, and then we will get out of here. I'll be back tomorrow for a roundtable. Hopefully Jared and Polkin, everybody can chime in, but we'll be back tomorrow. So let me see. So Ken Kaneki says, you already saw the reason for the obscure face. It's because the flashback to Echidna does not look the same as Dream Echidna. So just like Jared was saying, it's probably a difference in her appearance. Moving forward, we don't know much about the authority of melancholy. I didn't even think like, I don't know whether seven witches was fine, and then Pandora came. That's 8, and then now this melancholy, so there's 9. And as far as we know, he's the only male witch. Well, male warlock, I suppose. So, I love how Tepe researches into the older 9 sins theory. Alright, moving forward. Again, any questions you guys may have, please put them in the chat. 15 minutes, and then we will get out of here. Ken Kaneki says, I thought Flashback Ryuzu was great, and her interactions with Beatrice made her way more endearing. I respect that. I do. You know I do. Me personally, not really. Ryuzu is just not my thing. Garfield did move on, and that goes against Roswaal's mentality. That is true. I think I always felt that the Roswaal's beef here was that, the greater the love, the greater the hate. And so if it's that easy for you to change your mind and give up your hate, then your love wasn't good enough. I feel like that was like a theme in Naruto or something, like where Itachi was like, Sasuke, your hatred is not enough, or whatever. Where it's like, if you really, really loved the person, and then the person was taken from you, then the love you had for them should be paramount to the hate that you now have because they've been taken from you. And if it was that easy to change your mind, then you clearly didn't love her as much as you thought you did, is Roswaal's argument. But of course, that's not actually the case. So, moving on, Arkabarma says, I believe there's also the mentality through experience. Roswaal believes that he can bring Echidna back to life. Garfield doesn't have the power, nor can he think about it. And that is because Roswaal has hope. That is an actually good point. That's a good point. Roswaal actually has a means to actually achieve his goal, whereas Garfield can't. And so Garfield has to find a way to come to terms with the reality of things. That's true. That's true. And by the way, Jared, if you like, as I'm reading, if there's anything you want to chime in, please do. You can just cut me off and chime in if you want to. All right. So Liberhold says, I don't know if feelings can change. Something you feel so strongly about, though. I didn't have anything or anyone who affected my life like Echidna did Roswaal. We know that in, like, we didn't see it. We know it to be the case because he said so. So, excuse me. Ethan says, Arc 4 is mostly about grief. Subaru and his parents, Roswaal and Echidna, Emilia and Fortuna, and Juice and Puck. Beatrice and Ryuzu, Garfield and his mother. That's true. Grief is a running theme in this. Alright, so let me skip forward a little bit to get to the more current stuff. Tape said that he made this series because of Emilia. Perhaps he sees Emilia as the true protagonist in her story. Well, if that were the case, it'd be a lot easier, but I'm having a hard time believing that's the case. I just don't think that's the case.
Yeah, I did want to bring that up earlier, that she is technically a main, like, of the 2 main characters, it's her and Subaru.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be seen that way.
Well, fair enough. Fair enough. I have no idea how this man's going to end it, but it's going to be so interesting to see what he does. Alright, Subaru is conscious that he probably can't become as strong as others, such as Garfield. Thus, he places his ambitions on someone else. Oh, okay, so, like, because he can't actually do these things, he places it on Emilia and then seeks to help Emilia get where she wants to go. It's an original, like, I can't remember another mainstream main character who was so willing to, I don't want to use discard, but so willing to, say, oh, I can't necessarily do it, and so let me put all my effort into making you the best, or make you stand at the apex. I don't know if, so it is original, and it's all about how he executes it at the end.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good perspective, because, like, Subaru's main ability is literally a detriment to him, and he'd only make excuses up to use it for the sake of other people. So whenever it comes to attaining some kind of desire that he has, it would have to be on the shoulders of other people, because he can really not do much himself without killing himself. So,
right. Tragic tale. Like, I would not be surprised if Tepe just, like, gives us a sad ending. It's like, oh, he dies and that's it. Or, like, he dies and the story, it's over from episode 1. People would be so pissed. Yo, I would be so mad. I don't think he has the balls to do that. So this is about. So I still think the Echidna in the Tea Parties is not the Echidna in the past. That Echidna might be an aspect of the Witch of Greed, which took the form of Echidna. What do you think about that? If, because her spirit is the person who Subaru is interacting with at the Tea Party is, I mean, it's not Echidna in the flesh because she's dead. It's her soul, her spirit. So it's still got to be like the real her. It's still her, right?
So that's hard to say because, so this brings me back to something, another Ryuzu conversation, but it's talking about how Echidna was experimenting with immortality, and Ryuzu was talking about how Echidna tried to put herself into one of the clones,
Right.
and the clone couldn't actually hold Echidna's, soul or her memories. So Echidna had to cut pieces out here and there.
Yeah.
So that could be another point where, like, maybe she cut out her emotions. Maybe she cut out her memories of certain events. Like, so one big thing that comes up is whenever Beatrice, or whenever Subaru's talking about Beatrice to her, is she says, "I wonder who that person is." Maybe she cut out that because, I guess, her biggest part of her authority and her satisfaction in greed is learning the answer to something.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I mean, so many complex characters. It's actually crazy. It's all coming from one mind. You gotta give the man credit. This is about the earlier stream about the Tome of Wisdom. Do you think the Tome of Wisdom will have all the changes made by Pandora predicted in the tome? Well, I mean, in my mind, because the Tome of Wisdom is complex, or at least for me, it's hard for me to wrap my head around what it does, because there's so many. Well, I want to say details, but there's so many factors to it. Because in my mind, if the Tome of Wisdom has okay, let me put it this way. In the stream, the panel mentioned that Echidna may be able to read some of it, but Echidna cannot perceive all of it. And so it's like the Tome of Wisdom could be absolute, but still, because Echidna can't absolutely interpret all of it, that's what puts a limiter on it. Because in my mind, if the Tome of Wisdom has the ability to know what happens in the future, the true future, past, and all of that, if it's able to do that, the one who has control of the tome should stand at the apex of the entire series. But Echidna isn't. And so there has to be some sort of limiter. And so the fact that Amelia can't perceive all of it, it's like, okay, then I can understand that. And so to sort of answer the question, I think it's probably possible that the tome itself could have all the Pandora stuff, because it assumes that the tome must stand at the apex of everything. And that, to me, I'm able to accept that because Echidna can't fully interpret it. Because if she could, then Echidna should be the one who's strongest, but she's not, Like, even Pandora shouldn't be able to stand up to Echidna if Echidna has the ability to read all of the tome.
Well, and it also comes down to how the tome, like how the Gospels, I guess, and the copies of the Tome of Wisdom actually work is, do you put in, so like, she says there are copies of the Tome of Wisdom, but is it where you put in something and it uses the knowledge of the Tome of Wisdom to achieve that desired goal? In that case, a gospel, where I believe Roswaal mentioned a gospel was like a half-baked copy of a Tome of Wisdom.
Right.
Is it possible that Pandora is putting in a goal and then it tries to use that, use that goal to reach a desired outcome, and it gives them commands that way?
Maybe.
And I think another important aspect of the Tome of Wisdom, like the original Tome of Wisdom that her authority grants her, is that she actually uses her the trial and the dreamscape to actually manifest reality through the Tome of Wisdom. So,
Right.
like, if you remember correctly, in Amelia's trial at the very end, I'm trying to remember where we are.
I think the one you're talking about happened after.
Yeah,
I have seen it.
The very end of the first trial,
Right.
Pandora said to her, can't remember me, or whatever, or don't remember me,
Right.
that kind of thing.
It was the last episode.
Okay, because I think I know what you're talking. I mean, like, it's not a spoiler to me because I already seen it. It's just we won't break it down fully when we get to until we get to that episode. But I think you're talking about how, was it? I think it was Minerva told Emilia, like, because Emilia asked, "Is this like the future?" And she said it's one of the possible futures. And so maybe when Echidna is designing the trials, she's tapping into the power of the Tome of Wisdom, able to see multiple futures to be able to then sort of create these what if situations because these are possible futures. Was that what you were going with it?
I just remembered where it was. It happened earlier, so we can talk about it. So
Okay.
whenever Pandora, whenever Amelia just like went crazy and she was like,
Right.
die, whatever.
Right.
And Pandora walks up and she says, "You will remember none of this, or anything to do with me, specifically her." And so then basically she ripped that out of Amelia's memory. So Amelia's memory could not create that trowel the same way that she created Subaru's trowel with the memories.
Right.
So she had to fill in that knowledge with the Book of Wisdom.
Okay, got you. There's some broken stuff. Tome of Wisdom. I hope we definitely have to see where the origin of the Tome of Wisdom, because there's so many in terms of the world of ReZero. There's so many things like with the dragon and the sage, and all these, and something about the great serpent and a waterfall, and like I think that was was it Sekhmet, the one who lured the I'm sorry, no, it's good. Like I'm messing it up. One of the witches, Sekhmet did something and put it to sleep or something. What was it?
She wanted to sleep, so she drove the dragon past the great waterfall.
Okay, and the assumption is the dragon perished.
No.
I can't say right now.
Oh, okay, okay.
The dragon survived because it made the covenant.
Oh, if it's spoilery, I have to stop you there. I don't know if it is
Well,
spoilery.
we know that all 7 witches were killed, is what we know, and we know that the divine dragon had to live to make a covenant. So that's about the extent.
Got you. Okay, but yeah, in terms of Nagatsuki has actually done a pretty good job expanding the world to the point where, like, in terms of where the story could go, I don't want to say it's not endless, obviously, but there are many avenues, and the history aspect alone of it is like, all he has to do is do a flashback arc, and it's like, I'm gonna go crazy if he does a flashback arc to these things. But it's interesting to see where this goes from here. So, moving on. Prime says, my reason to say that Echidna might not be the person is because we know Satellite's mind got broken with the second personality, and which is because people in the chat are saying that the Echidna we see in the Tea Party is probably like there's a difference between Echidna the person and the Witch of Greed. This would be like the second witch, second to Satellite, who also has this split personality. I'm like, 1 is cool, 2 is two is already overkill if that's actually the case. At least from my personal preference, like 1 witch having a split personality is cool. Let's give another witch another issue. If 2 witches have split personality disorders, I tend to feel like, Nagatsuki I think that's overkill.
So in Echidna's case, I think it goes far beyond just a split personality. And whenever season 3 comes out, you'll get a lot more elaboration.
Okay,
on
I intend to
read by that.
Yeah, hopefully I can read before that, but yeah.
Oh yeah, especially with the interlude or the next part. I can't remember what the chapter was. Yeah, the
appendix. Okay, yeah. I'll we gotta finish the reviews, and then I promise you guys I'll start that after we finish the reviews. So, my theory about ReZero world being a simulation to machine learning improve the Book of Wisdom. Not very sure. ReZero world being a simulation. That would be a big FU, I think, if all of this turned out to be some sort of simulation. I don't know if
it's all a video game. He wins and he goes home. That'd be terrible.
Nah, Nagatsuki wouldn't do that. You don't make me feel and care for Rem and then say Rem never existed. You don't do that. Which is kind of funny because we're talking about a fictional story. But can Pandora make Subaru fail a checkpoint? He does all the right things, but Pandora says to Subaru, you have not done those things, so he'll fail. Has Pandora interacted with Subaru yet? I don't think so.
So here's the thing: is Pandora? There's a lot of question marks about her, but I do have like kind of a theory, which is that her authority, which is vainglory, actually requires whatever actions that she can change or variables that she can change to be directed at her. So, say for instance, whenever she brought Regulus with her to the forest, she was able to tell him, or she was able to actually change his position because he came there because of her. So, and it's not really, it's hard to see from the anime, but whenever it talks about her design, she's perceived as being like extremely beautiful and like eye-catching. So you might notice that whenever Pandora, or whenever Fortuna is like fighting her, she's not really like, nothing's happening. She's not doing anything in retaliation. And it's, you know, not until like Juice comes out of nowhere to kill her that you know, something, she actually does something. But she never really attacks anyone outside of like that one time she like pushed Regulus into the ground. I believe that she can only, her authority only allows her to make an action as long as it's directed at her. So like if you ignored her, maybe that might do something.
Okay, but yeah, unconfirmed, but I think there's probably credence to that to some degree, because I mean, what you're making does say, it does make sense to me. It does make sense to me. Pandora's broken, but she's also awesome. I hope, for me anyway, on a personal level, in terms of the witch I hope gets more screen time. As much as we all love Echidna, I'm kind of like, okay, cool, Echidna gets a season. Like, you got the entirety of season 2. Cool. I want Daphne to take center stage for a second. I want Nakatsuki to give me a reason to get some Daphne screen time, because, you know, I think Daphne is very compelling as a character for what we see. I mean, we're all like, oh my god, Satella, what are we gonna do? Or, oh my god, Echidna, this. Or Daphne's the only one who's actually chained up. I feel like that means something. Like, for the in this room full of dangerous people, only one of them is actually chained and bound and blinded. And I think she was like, people said in the novel her mouth was also bound as well, maybe, or something. So I'm like, seems to me like she's the one we should be really scared about, but you know, that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, it was. It's interesting. Well, there's a cut piece from the novel where it might have been the web novel. I don't think it was. They cut it out from the light novel, but from the web novel where during Subaru's interaction with Daphne, I think that she actually looked at him, and just from her like having eye contact, he ended up eating his arm off.
Yeah, I heard about that. Yep. which is that's broken. That's broken. Daphne's great. Like, Daphne is great, and thank you, Nagatsuki. Thank you. All like there's so many great characters that pretty much no matter who you are, you're gonna find somebody to like. You know, okay, Arkabarma says it was only the left eye. Broken. Like what you just described here, was that mind control? Was it mind control? Or was it just Subaru willingly, after like she made him feel a certain effect, and he willingly then did that?
Yeah, it was basically gluttony. So like the same thing that the rabbits feel.
Okay, so by looking at her, she made him feel hungry to the point where he wanted to eat his own fingers. Dang, that is.
He also feels like that all the time.
She also feels like that all the time.
Yes.
Okay. Wow, that is terrible. You know, and questions like that do prompt like the sort of, because I'm sure we'll have to go into it like eventually in the story. But when you talk about these things that are larger than life and like bigger than, you know, they're not normal. Like, how does Daphne feel this thing? Because there's no way this is normal. There's no way the story is, oh, Daphne is just a normal girl who just had an insatiable hunger that just grew and grew and grew and grew to the point where now this is her. Like, there has to be some sort of external trigger. Like, you can't tell me that Echidna is just born as a person who was so greedy that her greed manifested into a delusion that gave her powers. Like, it has to come from an external source, in my opinion. The official ReZero world map. Say, Pulkit, if I look at the ReZero map, would that spoil me? Just make sure. I want to look it up.
I need to have another look.
It depends on which map you're looking at.
Okay,
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah, because I am one. I would like to look at it to see how big the world is on a map scale, but if it's dangerous, then I just have to wait. It's her gluttony authority. He started eating himself subconsciously. She's changed because it's tiring for her to walk. Okay. Let me see. No, it's a spoiler. Okay. Well, I can't tell. 5 more minutes. Like unless Pulkit says I can look at the map. 5 more minutes and we'll be out of here.
Actually, it's like it won't be a spoiler without any context.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, live and look at
Yeah,
it.
you could probably look at like maybe at it.
Just to
depends
take
on
a
what
glance
kind
at
of
it.
stuff.
Okay. I'm just gonna pick something random from Reddit. The first one that
Wait,
pops up. Oh, come on.
'Cause there is a fan-made map, and then there's the map from the actual game.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you are you able to send me this in Discord, so I know, so that I'll let you choose, so I'm safe. Because there's one on Reddit, official ReZero world map. I wonder if that's it.
Map is only for like one country.
Sure. I mean, I'll look at whatever you got. I'll take it. Let me see. Oh, you sent me a picture of Hector. Hector looks
No,
nice.
that was before.
Okay. Well, if not, I am seeing, because I wanted to show it on screen. I am seeing. Let me just take this. Because I want to maximize it to show everyone. Let me see. Let me share my screen. All right, this is what I have on my screen. Is this it?
We can't see your screen right now.
Oh, you can't.
Oh, that was because of stream delay, I think so.
Okay.
That's the official game map.
Yeah,
Okay. So is that
this
good
is
enough?
from the game.
So, wait. So does it count or does it not?
It doesn't have any of the locations listed, so you're probably good.
Okay. Interesting. This is the entire. So is their world flat or something?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Oh, give the flat Earth is something. Okay, that's nice. Okay, so this doesn't give any locations, but roughly you got your mountain ranges, volcanoes to the far left. You got the ice place. I wonder maybe this ice place is where. Wait, I don't know for sure. If Emilia is the one who did that, that would be crazy.
That's Gusteco,
Sorry.
which is a north country.
Okay, got you. That would be crazy. I was like, yo, this little girl completely changed the geography. That is crazy. Okay, interesting. Hopefully, one day I'll be able to. Wait, let me end that. Hopefully, one day I'll be able to really just, take a good look at it, because all these from the great waterfall, there are a lot of locations that would be interesting to go into. So Nagatsuki, good on you, bro. Good on you. All right, guys. About 2 more minutes and then we're out of here. 2 more minutes and we're out of here. This was only 1 episode review, but it still took us like an hour 30 minutes, which is good. I was wondering if I would have enough content to fill up the time, but we still made it, which is good. What do you think happened to Hector afterwards? Because just like Pandora, he disappeared. Yeah, I don't what could have happened to them? Because Echidna Echidna is dead. Like, these other people, it's just like the residue of their spirits that we see mostly. So I don't know what would have happened to him. Maybe he doesn't even qualify anymore. Like, is there any guarantee that he's gonna come back? I don't think so. So he could just move along, because again, up until this flashback, he hadn't done anything. There wasn't any reason to have him to begin with. So
yeah, we can only really speculate. I think that personally, I think they just took his authority or something, or it was to combat his authority somehow.
Right. Which for 2 seasons, I feel like we've covered so much, but there's so much left to cover, which is crazy. Like I would what I would give to be in the studio, the White Fox director, choosing what should come, like choosing what should be adapted and what shouldn't be adapted, must be such a pain. You know, because I feel like they've given us so much information in 2 seasons, and even then, you know, if you read the novels and from what you guys are saying, or even for someone like me who doesn't actually know, I feel like there's details that they could have added that they couldn't. So it's actually just crazy. All right, guys. This is my final, looking through this on the final time. Elsa's character design is like perfection. Elsa's character design is amazing. I vibe with Elsa. I mean, she's kind of crazy. I mean, no, not kind of. She's literally crazy. But the character design, as far as character design goes, like she's something else. Something else. Worst Girl from Another Perspective. I read the web novel and I don't even know. Okay, so guys, thank you for coming. Thank you, Jared, for coming. Thank you very much. Hopefully I can have you on soon, because I know that doing these streams at 3 o'clock, not all the patrons are able to make it, and so if they can't, I'll just try to get either you or Ethan or somebody who can show up to then just chime in. But thank you very much. Is there anything you'd like to say to people in the chat, or like any final words before we get out of here?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. I look forward to, talking about more ReZero future episodes and stuff. But,
are you going to be able to make it for tomorrow's roundtable?
Tomorrow, is that also at 3?
Yes.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'll be at work.
Okay.
I got lucky today working from home, so.
Okay. It's so hard for me to try and figure out a way to get everybody in, because everyone is just like scattered everywhere. I'm wondering if I need to have like 2, to where it's like, oh, if you can't make one, you can make the other or something. I'll have to figure it out, because it's right now, like I'm not in school right now because it's summer vacation. Once school starts, I'm gonna be even more busy, and so in my mind, I've singled out Tuesdays and Thursdays. Actually, yeah, Tuesdays and Thursdays. Thursdays. Thursdays are like my super free day, to where I would try to do everything on Thursday. Otherwise, the traffic of videos would just slow down massively. So I'm hoping I can figure something out so I can get everyone in, because especially if you're paying for it, like I need to figure out a way to get you guys in here. But thank you for coming. We'll definitely figure it out as we do so. And yes, Rams, there will be a roundtable tomorrow. I'm gonna post like on Discord, and I'll post what the topic will be and things like that. And hopefully it's a smooth roundtable. But thank you guys. This is your boy Rebirth signing off. This was a decent to good episode of ReZero, and I'll catch you guys in the next Rebirth video. And please watch my Bleach videos. Watch my Bleach. I'm trying to get the Bleach content moving. So if you're a Bleach fan, check out the videos. I guarantee you it's good. So do you need a link to the Discord? Okay, sure. Let me grab it. Let me see. Realm of Rebirth. Where is it? Here it is. Create invite, copy. All right, I'm gonna put the link to the Discord in the chat. Just join in if you can, and I will see you guys in the next Rebirth video. Peace out.